Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to another Grassroots Health interview. I'm happy to have a previous participant back on, although it's been several years, Susan Rex Ryan, who is a pretty well-known name in the public vitamin D space. And just a little brief introduction to Susan. Um, Susan Rex Ryan is the award-winning author of five vitamin D books, the popular Defend Your Life series, and I've got a couple of her books right here. Very good, very easy reads that I highly recommend. Her books, written in easy to understand language, address vitamin D's amazing health benefits, including having healthy babies, enjoying a strong immune system, and reducing the risk of cancer. In 2015, she founded the Vitamin D Wellness Group in Facebook, which has over 71,000 members. Sue has introduced thousands of people to the vitamin D wellness protocol and is impassioned with sharing vitamin D's role in enhancing the quality of life for all populations. She has been featured on television, radio, and podcasts, and in addition to her writing, she has been published on multiple health websites and in health magazines. So I'm happy to have you back here again, Sue.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me, Jen.
You're welcome. And before we start with the questions, just uh, any brief memories to share from your past interview? I know that Carol Baggerly, our founder, interviewed you before, and you've been featured on our website. But do you have any memories to share with us before we begin?
From Carol's interview.
Yeah, or just
Oh,
meeting her in general and
oh, she was a wonderful person. I still can't believe we've lost her. Um, she's was highly competent and really had a way of bringing research into practice, which I know is one of Grassroots' main messages.
yeah.
And Carol, she was amazing. She put a couple, at least a couple good vitamin D workshops, conferences, of which I went to, and they were just fabulous. So um, I have very good memories.
Well, that's great. And I'm sure that you're more than happy that you found her on your journey. Um, so for those who may not be familiar with you, can you just share a little bit about yourself in general?
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. I was born and raised in Pennsylvania, specifically in the Philadelphia area. And then I went to college to Georgetown University in Washington, D.C. And what this will segue into the next, probably your next question, but the stress of living and working in Washington, D.C., I think most people can appreciate that. So when I retired, I found that I really, after a few months, it was like I was on a high, like I'm retired, I've left Washington. My husband and I moved to Las Vegas to just kind of get away from it all, be in nice weather, be with the palm trees and the mountains. And it was just wonderful. But all of a sudden, I started not feeling well. And I thought, what's going on? But I look back, it was probably decades of stress that had taken my body down. And so I took it upon myself not to go to a doctor per se, but to educate myself on, on not on vitamin D at the time, but just educate myself. And I started going to medical conferences, really, and seminars. So there, I actually earned continuing medical uh, credits and CMEs. And then I started, I sat next to MDs and we went over all kinds of things, including bioidentical hormones. Um, but in 2008, in St. Louis, at one of these conferences, a gentleman gave a presentation on vitamin D and only on vitamin D. And I was like, wow. I had heard of vitamin D, but mainly as the sunshine vitamin. And so I was just blown away from it and decided to start researching the medical literature and understanding more about vitamin D. So that's really how I began my journey. And why did I write these books? Because I felt, Jen, that I had a secret, and that secret was vitamin D. And this is back in 2009, around that time frame.
Hmm.
And people did not know about vitamin D in terms of anything about it, really. And certainly supplementation was not common then. And generally, if supplements were available, they were vitamin D2 or ergocalciferol. And so there wasn't much out there. People just knew, well, you could go out in the sun, but then, of course, there's concerns about skin cancer and that kind of thing.
Right.
So that's really how I got started. And I spent the next few years really digging into the medical literature. And because I enjoy writing and had always wanted to write a book, I decided to write Defend Your Life. So that's it. That's it. And I'm proud to say that it won an international award, that it won the Mom's Choice Award back then. And so I was encouraged, and also the more I delved into vitamin D, I saw all kinds of benefits, and I felt that I needed to write about those.
Hmm. Hmm.
And the second book is really about life itself and includes preconception, which is really, um, people just don't think about that. Parents are saying, okay, we want to have a baby. Um, but they're not, they may at this point now think the baby would need vitamin D. But
Definitely.
for the most part, it's still, um, how do I put it? It's still, sorry.
Not common knowledge.
It was not common knowledge. And I don't know, quite frankly, that it still is today,
No,
that
it's
the
not thought of.
preconception part.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not thought of enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, and where the research is really strong is the benefits and the health effects, not just for the mom, but also for the baby, of vitamin D during pregnancy. However, the best time to correct vitamin D deficiency, I mean, any time is the best time to correct
That's
vitamin
right.
D deficiency, but I think the most impactful time is preconception. And if you can actually have high, nice, strong vitamin D levels before getting pregnant, not only are you going to increase your chance of conceiving, you're going to decrease your risk of miscarriage, but the baby's going to reap the benefits of vitamin D from the moment it's conceived. And vitamin D is so important in the development of all those different tissues, and the lungs, especially, develop very soon in pregnancy. And there's been studies showing that women who enter pregnancy with a vitamin D level of at least 40, their child's risk of asthma goes down, if not, it's a very, very low risk compared to
Hmm.
vitamin D deficiency at the beginning, or
Yeah.
even repairing vitamin D deficiency during pregnancy.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
back
exactly.
back to your story. Are you okay sharing a little more? Like what type of symptoms, what were you going through physically, mentally? Like what was happening in your life that you just knew something was wrong that really inspired you to do all of this research and spend all of this time going to medical conferences and looking for answers?
I really had little to no energy.
Mhm.
I live in a one-story home, and doing laundry was was challenging. Basic household chores were challenging. Muscle aches, joint aches, just a general malaise. Just didn't feel right. Didn't feel right at all. And I thought, this is crazy. because I was relatively young and I shouldn't be feeling this way. And I found when I started supplementing with vitamin D, I saw a big change. Now, of course, as you and I know, that supplementation, you kind of experiment with it and how much and what form and all that. So it took a little bit of time, but the changes were obvious. The positive changes were obvious. And
And did you
since,
measure your level at what
yeah,
point did you think of measuring your level? Was it after you already started supplementing or?
good question. It was actually before I started supplementing, and my level was 24.7 nanograms per milliliter. And
Mhm.
I saw that and I thought, oh my goodness, we're talking almost traceable about, um, the number. And I knew that I had to get it way up.
Mhm. Yeah, and good thing you were educated because a lot of doctors would see that number and they would think, oh, it's above 20 nanograms per milliliter. You're fine. You don't have to worry about vitamin
Mm-hmm.
D. But that was
Mm-hmm.
absolutely not the case for you, right?
Right, right, exactly,
So,
exactly.
so what changes, physically, mentally, emotionally, overall, did you notice when you first started supplementing and then as you continued to
Mm-hmm.
supplement?
Um, Getting rid of some of these symptoms that I mentioned, that definitely just feeling better, more energy, less muscle aches, joint pain. I could tell, wow, I had really, uh, gotten somewhere with this.
Mhm.
So physically, yeah, it was just great. It was just great.
And so I know you talk about your vitamin D wellness protocol. Um, what does that entail and how did you eventually get to a full protocol? What were some of the things that you went through and experienced as you started increasing your vitamin D supplementation, increasing your levels and realizing, I might want to go up a little higher or I might want to consider including something else. Can you just kind of walk us through how your experiences and your timeline, both physical experiences and the knowledge that you started gaining, and how you started to piece together what worked for you and then what you now term your vitamin D wellness protocol?
Yeah. First of all, Jen, I really focused on vitamin D itself, and I kind of experimented with different forms. Of course, we know it's a fat soluble vitamin, and that it should be in a soft gel, taken in a soft gel. But it took me a while to even get to that point. Kind of playing around with it. I even tried liquid vitamin D supplementation. And when I say vitamin D, I mean vitamin D3.
Yes.
Uh, and I had a doctor back then who I said to him, I'd like to supplement with vitamin D3. He's like, great, I'll write you a prescription.
Mhm.
Wrong. I got that prescription and I thought, it was 50,000 a week. I think it was D3, but there was no way I was going to take it. I knew that that was the wrong path to take. So, to answer your question, initially I really focused on vitamin D. And then my research looked at how vitamin D can increase calcium and how to get rid of that calcium out of our arteries, really, and blood vessels. So I found K2, and specifically K2MK7, I think is the most effective. So that is the second part of the protocol. And the third part is magnesium, and it just helps with um, uh, metabolism. And so those are the three. So my protocol is essentially it's three supplements, although anymore it's easy to get D3 combined with K2 as one pill. So one fat soluble soft gel. So in essence, it's taking three pills. It's that simple. And what I recommend is taking them after breakfast, and then you're set for the day. It's just, I've tried to keep it very simple. So essentially, start out with vitamin D, about 5,000 IUs a week. And then if that seems to do well with you, then within a week or so, increase to 10,000, and then go to 20,000 if you wish. I think for a lot of people, 10,000 works pretty well. But if you really want to get up there, you can do 20,000. And I believe you can do that safely. And that just reminds me of just a caveat I want to point out to our audience is that uh, people with kidney and liver issues should definitely consult their practitioner before taking it. I just want to mention that. Mm-hmm. So again, the protocol, the first one, of course, is vitamin D3, 10 to 20,000 IUs. And these are all daily. And then about 100 mcgs of vitamin K2. And then 400 to 600 milligrams of magnesium. And that's it. And I recommend magnesium malate if you're taking it in the morning, because that can help you get better energy. Okay. Or if you'd rather not do that, magnesium glycinate at bedtime. Glycine is a has a calming effect. Mm-hmm. So, that's where I'm coming with that. Mm-hmm. So it's essentially a 3-nutrient protocol with vitamin D and 2 of its partners. And here's something I want to say, and we may be jumping ahead a little bit, but why are people not doing this? Well, first of all, they're not educated to do it. And second, it needs to be a routine, Jen. People need to build this into the routine. And I don't know how many people I've talked to said, well, yeah, I know, but I forgot to take it. If you make it just after breakfast and part of your routine on a daily basis, that's another area I want to emphasize, then it's going to help you. It's just that's simple. And that's my whole thing with my books. This is so simple with great benefits, and it's not expensive either. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's safe and expensive and just simple and effective.
Mm-hmm. Right. And sometimes I almost think that its simplicity is almost a problem because people think it's too simple. They're like, it's not going to work. But no,
You're right.
This is, like you said a while ago, this is our sunshine vitamin. And that was another question I was going to ask, if you incorporate sun exposure. But I also wanted to just make two notes actually before we move forward. This is not medical advice. We have to say that we're not your practitioners. This is we are merely educating on what has worked for Sue, what has worked for myself, what's worked for thousands of other individuals.
That's right.
And so back to vitamin D being the sunshine vitamin, we have to be intentional in getting our sun exposure, especially if we want to get the health benefits and the vitamin D. So, vitamin D, you have to be out when the UVB rays are available. That's midday. During the winter, a lot, anybody in the northern hemisphere, northern latitudes of the country, they experience a vitamin D winter, meaning there's no UVB and your body can't make any vitamin D. So I can't tell you how often I hear somebody say, oh, yeah, I go outside and I expose my hands and face in the morning and go on my 15-minute walk. I'm fine. And that's absolutely not the case. You have to be intentional. You have to expose most of your skin midday, no sunscreen, and just know when the time is right. So there are so many other health benefits to sun exposure too. But out of curiosity, is that a part of your protocol or what you kind of encourage others to do?
It is a bit. It is a bit. And the reason I hesitate is years ago, and I mean decades ago, I developed melanoma. Mm-hmm. And I write about that in book 5, the vitamin D and cancer book, that I developed it. Luckily, it was caught and excised quickly, and I've been fine since then. But I I've gone back and forth on the sunshine bit. Dr. Cedric Garland, I remember him saying, you know Dr. Garland.
I love Dr. Garland.
Yeah, yeah, he's great. And I remember him saying at one point, if you could go out, and this is a little bit for more men, I guess, than women, go shirtless for about 15 to 20 minutes during optimal the optimal sun period, which would be about 10 o'clock in the morning to, as you said, around noon. That's a good thing to do. So that's sort of it in a nutshell with me. I have mixed feelings. Yesterday, for example, it was beautiful here in Las Vegas, and I sat out in the sun for about 15 minutes, and it felt great.
Right.
So I sort of personally do it off and on, and because of the threat, if you will, of melanoma or any type of skin cancer, I'm a little more hesitant
Mhm.
anymore.
Yeah.
And I also, this is probably a good time to mention that last fall, my dear husband was diagnosed with stage 4 metastatic melanoma in his lungs. And we were just devastated. Um, Fortunately, very fortunately, he was put on immunotherapy, and that's not chemo or radiation, it's immunotherapy. And the immunotherapy worked wonderfully. And within 2 months, he was in remission, which I'm thrilled to say. And it was interesting. After we got this good news, he said, without any prompting from me, he said, I think my vitamin D level, which his is over 100 nanograms per milliliter, I think that certainly helped. It can't prove that, but he volunteered that, and he firmly believes that.
Mhm.
So as you can see, both my husband and I have had touches of melanoma, and that personally is why we're not just basking in the sun.
Right. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And everybody's a unique situation, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so it is going to be everybody's choice. And
Yeah.
there is so many other health benefits of at least getting sunlight. Um,
Yes.
and so just being mindful though, and knowing that vitamin D supplementation is still most highly likely necessary, even if you are getting a lot of sun exposure. So most people
Absolutely.
do need to supplement. So back to your protocol, and I'm glad you mentioned your husband's vitamin D levels. You mentioned your vitamin D level when you first tested was 24, right?
Yes.
24. So
Yes.
what is your vitamin D level now, and where do you like to keep it, and what do you recommend to other people? Because I know it's slightly higher than what Grassroots Health recommends, but
Yeah. My recommendation is 100 nanograms per milliliter to shoot for that. I consider that optimal. And I attained that some years ago and have maintained it. It went up to around 150. I felt great. It went to 194. I felt great. And my doctor kind of was surprised. It is now over 200. And I've never felt better. And speaking of my doctor, this is a primary care physician. A couple years ago, he did blood work and examined me and so forth. And then he was staring at his laptop, just kind of staring at it. And I'm wondering what's going on. And he looked at it and he exclaimed, "You're healthy." So he was surprised, I guess, to get any patients that are that healthy. And he's a little surprised that my vitamin D level's that high, but yet he sees there's no adverse effects from that.
Mhm.
So I'm not saying everyone should be at 200, but I think everyone, that's my personal opinion, should be at 100. Where do I come up with 100? That's the high end of reference ranges for labs.
Mhm.
So I think that's reasonable.
Yeah.
Um, and people who have attained 100 say they just feel incredible. They
Mhm.
just feel so much better from how they were feeling.
Yeah.
And I also think you may have seen this in the cancer book, that I really think to seriously reduce the risk of developing cancer, that one should have at least 100 milligrams
Hmm.
um,
But being
or
mindful,
nanograms,
like you
excuse me,
said,
nanograms. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So,
I really believe that, and I think, well, I'm a firm believer in it and have been for some time.
hmm. Right. And it's important for people to understand, vitamin D toxicity is incredibly rare and difficult to achieve.
Yes,
Yes, it is still possible. And so vitamin D toxicity is actually it's hypercalcemia. So it's when your blood gets too much calcium in it, and it is life-threatening. The role of our parathyroid, which is what basically tells it controls vitamin D metabolism, and that's what controls calcium coming in from our food or pulling it from our bones, because that maintenance of that very small range of calcium in our blood is really important. And so ensuring that if you're taking higher doses of vitamin D, it might not be a good idea to supplement with calcium. In fact, that is strictly prohibited on a lot of the high dose vitamin D protocols. Also, limiting calcium from food might be something people would want to consider. Making sure you're getting enough magnesium and vitamin K2, especially to shuttle that calcium into the tissues and your bones, the right tissues, the proper tissues, which
that's
um,
right.
when I recently interviewed Dr. Sunil Wimalawansa on the topic of the importance of the calcium to magnesium ratio. So making sure that you're getting enough of that magnesium, because that's what helps to ensure that the calcium is going to the right tissues. So just being mindful that taking, vitamin D and that's it's not for most people. You need to be a little more aware of how vitamin D interacts with other nutrients and why it's important to also be mindful of hydration, be mindful of your kidney health, and so. But okay, yes, 200. We would normally say this is another disclaimer here. If you're
Yeah,
aiming for levels that high, we usually recommend working with a knowledgeable practitioner. But you've got your doctor who's monitoring your levels, and so that's fantastic. And like, Sue is feeling the best she's ever felt in her life, which thank you to vitamin D and to all of your research and how to make this a full wellness protocol. Um, so, um, you know,
excuse me, Jen. May I add one more thing to this conversation?
of course.
There's something called, and you probably have heard of it, the coronary artery calcium score.
Hmm.
I'm proud to say I've had it a number of times since I was 60, and it's zero. So when my doctor goes, G or vitamin D level is high, he looks at the calcium score and it's zero, which is unheard of for someone.
Explain a little more what that test shows you, though.
Yeah, what that test is, it's a non-invasive. You go through a CAT scan. It only takes about 25 minutes, and it's generally very inexpensive. I pay $99, 99 US dollars for that. And what it does is image your arteries and images them for plaque. And by having a score of zero, that meant I don't have plaque in my arteries. In other words, my calcium is going where it should go, to the bones and teeth, per the protocol.
Hmm.
So that's another way that I've checked my calcium.
Right, right. That's great. So a few other, I'm going to kind of move on to a slightly different topic in a second, but as somebody who has a Facebook group with over 71,000 individuals and somebody who's talking about vitamin D all the time, um, What are some of the concerns that will come up and like I guess, how do you address that concern of, oh my goodness, that's too much vitamin D, or I tried it and it didn't work. Like what are some of the frequent responses that um, might not be as encouraging, but they're missing something else?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Certainly, people have said, "Gee, um, this isn't really working well for me." Let me back up with my group. I have two wonderful administrators, one in the United States and one in the UK. So it works out really well because they have their own perspectives. Plus, with the time difference, they're able to cover a lot of input coming in.
Mhm.
So are they handle a lot of this, and people will come in, oh gee, I feel terrible, and there's sort of a, here's the wellness protocol, here's a list of supplements, which is very important in the US and the UK because they're two different markets, and we try to find the best quality supplements at a decent price, and so we do that. It comes back though, Jen, I think, to two words: daily routine. And people are like, oh yeah, okay, that makes sense, yeah, this sounds good, and okay, I took my vitamin D and K2 and magnesium today, isn't that wonderful? But they expect results right away, and they need to do it on a daily basis, and they need to make it part of their routine.
Mhm.
So that's something that I emphasize with them. And
Mhm.
we have other people that say, I've been following the protocol and I feel great. It's changed my life.
Yeah.
So you kind of get it from A to Z.
Yeah.
So you know, that's sort of my reaction to people in the group.
Yeah. And that's what's great. Grassroots Health has been running an online study where individuals will come in, they'll measure their vitamin D level, and they'll do an online questionnaire that tells us, they say how much vitamin D they take and how often they take it. But their blood tests don't lie. When they come back, it's like, did you really take this amount of vitamin D every day? Oh no, maybe most
Mm-hmm.
days. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's the importance of measuring the level. But even more important is making a good habit out of it. So, well, I appreciate you sharing that perspective. Um, so I'm going to ask just a few other questions about your message and what type of individual do you feel would benefit most from hearing your message about vitamin D?
Everybody, all populations. I'm serious. Vitamin D deficiency, as you well know, is a worldwide issue. It isn't just the United States and the UK, it's across the world. And I think everyone can benefit from it. And that's sort of how I've come across that, uh, simply everyone, all populations, I think should be using this, and that includes people who live in the equatorial region. Yes, they get more sunshine. Yes, their vitamin D levels may be a little bit higher. But anymore, so many people work indoors. They wear, clothing that covers up their bodies, that I don't think lots of people are getting to the optimal level, even if they live in the equator region.
Hmm. Yeah,
So
it's
it's
very
really all populations, I think. And my books do sell in Australia, Canada, of course, the UK and the US are the areas, and some in Europe.
true.
But it's certainly that message is for everyone.
Yeah, yeah. And what are some of the most common misconceptions about vitamin D that you aim to correct through your books and through your advocacy, besides, what we just talked about?
Yeah, misconceptions. Just kind of, it won't work for me, or I can't be bothered. Um, it sort of comes down to what we've been talking about, that
Mhm.
people just need to focus. And if they focus on it and they understand what the benefits are for them and for their families, I think that they'll start focusing more on that. So
Yeah.
it's really coming down to focus.
Yeah, which requires education because if you
That's
don't
right.
know, right, then you're not motivated to actually take the steps and make it a habit. So, just a little bit about grassroots health, if you don't mind. What gaps do you see in the public health messaging today, and how have you seen grassroots health fill those gaps? And just a little note here, you mentioned writing your books around 2009. And that was just about a year after Grassroots Health was founded, and we started our vitamin D action studies. So, you and Carol both began your missions around the same time for the
Mm-hmm.
same
Yeah,
reason, because there is all of this amazing research about vitamin D and not enough people hearing about it. So how could grassroots health, or how have we and how could we be doing a better job?
that's a good question because I sort of have that for myself as well. It's so hard to get that message out, and you all are doing a great job of trying to do that.
Thank you.
I think just our interview today is a step in the right direction. That we need to collaborate more, not just uh, grassroots health and myself, but with other people. And I know that you went up to the Hill, which I was very impressed with. That you went to Capitol Hill. That's great. And I look forward to whatever comes out of that. I realize things move at a very slow pace. So,
Glacial, as they put it.
so you guys are doing a great job. Um, but I think you and I both at times say, what can we do more?
Mhm.
And it gets frustrating as far as my books are concerned, and that a lot of people these days don't read.
Mhm.
They don't read. So that has been my way of getting the message out, and so it's frustrating to see that. And also, I mean, I'm glad to have the vitamin D wellness Facebook group because, as you know, a lot of people are coming into that and they are getting assistance from that. As far as grassroots health, keep doing what you're doing, is what I have to say. And you guys are doing a great job. And it's just hammering out that message, getting that message out to as many people as you can. And as you've said, putting research into practice is kind of your mantra, I believe. And I think it's just keeping at it and chipping away. And we both have done that. We both have done that. And I know we'll continue to do that. So I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, yep. It's not always let's just put it this way, it can be an uphill battle. But
Yes.
there's passion
Yes.
here on both sides. And
Yes.
so I have a thought, and a question.
Okay.
How do you see personal stories helping to move vitamin D research into real world practice? Because I think that this could be a way that you and I can collaborate more and include your Facebook group. Because in my experience, when people share their story, they're not, the people who are hearing the story are not reading a book. They're going to hear something that the individual is sharing that they can relate to,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a testimonial for the power of vitamin D.
Mm-hmm.
So, have you noticed the storytelling as being a good influencing factor in spreading awareness of vitamin D? And would you be willing to help gather some stories from those around you in your sphere in your Facebook group?
Sure. And we have done that. And sometimes people come in and say, all right, what proof do you have? Let's hear other people's stories. So that's been going on for years in the Facebook group.
Hmm.
Yes, of course, I'd be willing to share that, but I need people who are willing to share that. And,
Yeah.
we need to find more of that. So that's kind of where I am on that. I think personal stories are important. And I see them really being important, Jen, in families. If one family member is following the protocol and they say, wow, I'm really feeling so much better, then they'll tend to give it to their children, to their brothers, sisters, husbands, and so forth. So I think a lot of it is from the family, familial.
All right.
Those are just my thoughts on that.
Okay. And I think this is kind of getting close to wrapping up because Grassroots Health, we don't just work with individuals, we also work with healthcare practitioners and all different types of medical doctors. Um, how do you feel like what advice do you think that we could give to medical doctors and then also just in patient practice? How could the patients feel supported by a doctor who, recommends vitamin D or the other way around, such as, your own experience? You have a doctor who is supportive of what you're doing, but how could a patient advocate for themselves? With vitamin D in the medical practice.
Yeah, yeah. Um, just checking something here.
Yeah.
Um, Medical training, and that's a big one. What I mean by that, Jen, is right now in most medical schools, doctors get up to 4 hours of nutrition, not just vitamin D, all nutrition. And a couple months ago, the U.S. Health and Human Services Secretary said that's it. We are now 53 medical schools in the United States will have uh, 40 hours of nutritional training. And I was so happy to hear that. That is a big step in the right direction, is to
Hmm.
educate doctors. And it's my understanding it isn't just medical students, it is practicing physicians who, earn their CMEs, and there will be more seminars and so forth available that they can understand better what vitamin D has. So I think again it comes through education, but that was a huge step in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that has been a major block in some of the projects that Grassroots Health has done is, for example, we have implemented some quality improvement projects and nutrient field trials in hospitals and medical institutions. And a big part of what has to happen is the education of the medical staff. Because it could just take one person who doesn't agree or doesn't understand, and then they could be that block in the success of the program. So yes, I saw that news coming out of HHS. I was very happy to hear that.
Yes, yes,
Well, I know we could keep talking for another
yes,
hour or so.
easily, easily.
But we should probably wrap it up soon. Are there any other key points or anything else that you'd like to say? Anything you'd like to ask me before we close up today?
I just want to say thank you very much. This has been great. Thank you for taking the time to interview me. And I hope that my message, along with what you've added, helps people go, wow, we need to do this. I need to do this for themselves and their families.
Yeah.
So that's really my message. And I can't emphasize enough my mantra of daily routine. And I think that's so important. I
Hmm.
really do.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. And I do want to kind of share one of my favorite lines from one of our scientists. And the fear of vitamin D deficiency should be much greater than the fear of vitamin D
Mm,
toxicity. There are so many consequences that in almost every single aspect of our health that can result from vitamin D deficiency. And we're talking deficiency, we're talking about the importance of correcting deficiency, getting up into optimal levels, which, the definition of optimal can vary. Grassroots Health, our panel, suggests 40 to 60 nanograms per milliliter. Some of our scientists do suggest 40 to 80, and some of them up to 100. And then there are certainly protocols out there that use therapeutic doses of vitamin D to actually treat disease. And this is like autoimmune diseases such as multiple sclerosis and psoriasis. And those are some very successful protocols. But I'm taking a step back and saying, almost 80% of the US adult population is below that 40 level, that
Hmm.
minimum recommended optimal level by
Hmm.
our scientists,
Hmm.
if not closer to 90% of the US population. And so just getting your vitamin D level up into that range could make huge differences for your overall health and well-being and for your long-term health outlook. And then, you can see once you get that corrected, you can start playing with your levels, get them up higher if you want, like Sue does, and see, if you benefit more from that. And you never know, right? But just simply taking that step of correcting deficiency, you're measuring your vitamin D level to make sure you're not deficient. When I first measured, I live in San Diego. I'm a surfer girl. I'm at the beach all the time. I'm in the park with my kids, and my level was 27, I think it was when I first measured. I was
Yeah.
like, blown away. I get so much
Yeah.
sun. But that's, what we recommend. The first step being measure your levels if you can't, or if you just don't want to, if you can't afford it, for whatever reason, don't let that stop you from taking, just start with 5,000 IU vitamin D a day. Start with the protocol, do the magnesium and the K2 with it.
Mhm.
But it certainly, like I said, you could be harming your health more by not taking action on this than, by taking those three simple pills
Mhm.
on a regular basis. Daily vitamin D is really important. There's a lot of research that shows that there's benefit with taking it daily versus weekly, monthly. Don't even go there. Right? So make
Right.
it a habit. Start learning more about the benefits of vitamin D, and grassrootshealth.net is an amazing resource. So are Susan's books. They're such an easy read. I mean, just start with this one, the first one. Um, it could make a big difference for your health. So, with that, Susan, I thank you very much for your time and for all of your effort and passion in being a vitamin D advocate, and for joining us today.
Thank you, Jen. It's been my pleasure.
All right, till next time, have a great day.
Thanks. Same to you.
All right, bye now.
Bye bye. Bye bye.